And we're live. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. This is Hoop Scoop Straight from the Soul with Nisha Wright. And today I am honored to have a very, very special guest on. Augusta native, Hephzibah alum, wife, mother, coach, Hall of Famer, Olympian, you name it, she is it. Miss Otoro Umo Coleman. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much, Anisha, for having me on.
Definitely, definitely. I'm excited to have you on. So let's talk a few things. Let's get started and talk a few things. So let's talk about your decision to come back into coaching, and then how long did you take off, and then how was that time that you took off? Being with family and everything.
So yeah, so I'm gonna go into kind of like I have 4 kids, and I won't even say suffer, but I get mommy guilt a lot. In our profession, you're away for recruiting, for practices, for games. And so, I don't have enough time to spend with my kids as much as I would like. And so I was at Penn State previously, and we got released at the end of the year. And then I had a couple opportunities to get back into coaching right away. But at the time, I just thought it would be a really good idea to pour into my kids. And I took a year off, and it was awesome. I actually got a chance to volunteer coach at my oldest daughter's high school. And I don't know how much she liked it, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it because I got a chance to be around her, coach her up a little bit. Her and I butt heads. So that was a good time for us to bond with each other and, just seeing her grow because I just hadn't had a chance to see her play as much as she's been playing right now. And not only Jada, but my other 3 kids, everybody's active. And so I got a chance to really be involved, picking them up from school, taking them to practice, tutoring, all that stuff. And it was awesome. Like I really enjoyed this time with my kids. But during that, I was watching games like I couldn't get away from it. I thought that year off, I would be, like going in a different direction with my career. And during that time, like I would watch film. I was still talking to coaches. I was still giving advice to recruits. And I just could not get away from it. So I knew like at the end of this year, once the season was over, that I was going to try to get back into it. And luckily I did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What are your kids' ages?
So Jada's my oldest. She's 15 years old. And then Jordan is 10. Jasmine is 9. And Dutch, he's the only boy. He's 8.
And you coached Jada's team this year.
Yeah, I coached Jada's team this year. Like I said, I don't know how much she liked it, but I absolutely loved it. I really did. It was awesome just seeing her just in that environment. Because from a distance, she tells me that she's working hard and all that. And I would only show up for the games. But just to see the behind the scenes stuff, I found out this year that she was actually taking it a bit serious. And I got to coach her up and she didn't fight it. So that was really fun for me.
That had to be pretty, pretty amazing. And so you guys are now about to move across country.
Yeah.
So tell me, how are you feeling about that? The move, that's going to be a big move.
Well, I think my kids are all at an age where they're just more aware. And so at first, when we had talked about moving, it was a shock to them just because they think about their friends first. And we built a big sense of community in State College. And so I knew that part would be hard. But they got a chance to talk to the coaches at Marquette. They got a chance to talk to the players. And I mean, they did a really good job of making my kids feel very welcome. And now they just can't wait. They're just like, when are we moving? When do we leave? Can we leave tomorrow? So, I don't know when we're going to move because of the pandemic. But I know whenever it's okay to move, we'll go ahead and do it.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. All right, let's get into a little bit of recruiting and talk about the coaching climate right now. The challenges that you guys are facing at the Division I level. How is recruiting during the pandemic? What are you looking for during the pandemic? Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's really hard right now. And here's why I say it's hard to recruit. just because, you know, in the spring and summer, you get a chance to go out and you'll get to look at a lot of different prospects in one place. And, you know, we would look forward to building our young kid database, that's sophomores, freshmen, sometimes middle school players, this summer. And so now we don't know what is going to happen this summer. We're doing a lot of things by watching film. And that part has been kind of challenging because a lot of people like to send in highlight tapes. And of course, you know, you're going to look really good in highlight tapes, and that's fine. But also, we need to see full games because, you know, there's a lot to say about just the pace of a game, you know, your decision making, you know, your reads. There's so many different things you can pick out from a full game versus a highlight tape. And so, at this time of year, we would be getting our calendar together, figuring out what tournaments we're going to, making sure we're touching base with coaches and recruits to make sure that they're going to be at certain tournaments. And now it's a lot of talking, and you have to trust a lot of people about what they say about their players. And sometimes that's hard. You know, as coaches, you want to see them play live. You know, that's the best way to evaluate talent. You want to see them play live. So with this pandemic, you're not able to get out as much as you would like to. And so we're relying a lot on full games. That's a challenge. You know, the NCAA just came out with a rule that I think will benefit a lot of players. I know it would have benefited me when I was in school, but they just waived the standardized test. So, you know, for the incoming freshmen this year for 2021 year, you don't have to take the SAT or the ACT. What needs to happen is you need to have at least a 2.3 in your core courses, your 10 core courses before your senior year. So, you know, when I was coming out of school, I had to take the test 2 or 3 times, I think it was. And at the time, I was a 4.0 student. I just wasn't a good test taker. So this rule would have definitely benefited me because right now, all you have to have is a 2.3 in your core courses before your senior year. And then you don't have to take the test, and that kind of opens it up for a lot of people. You know, those athletes that had decided to maybe go to a JUCO or an NAIA school because of their grades, you know, this kind of it's going to change their mindset about it a lot. So it's, you know, it's a weird type of time for recruiting. But for those athletes that kind of struggled with that test, you know, sky's the limit right now.
Definitely. So that new rule is definitely a game changer. So
yes, it is.
We know we had a question last week, and I don't think that rule was out yet. But one of the questions was, okay, if you have a kid who actually committed to a school prior to the pandemic, and now you got this rule that has come out that basically they can almost go, you know, to any school at this point. Like, what advice would you give to that kid, that parent that's watching that says, you know, my child signed, but now there's no restrictions on test scores. They just need to have a 2.3, you know, in their core courses. So what advice would you give to a parent or even, you know, a kid that just signed?
Well, I think that's tough. You know, my advice would be, you know, if you hit sign with a school prior to this rule coming out, that you would honor your commitment. Because, you know, I'm that coach on the other side thinking that, you know, I have accounted my roster and you're counted on my roster. And if you come back to me and say, hey, I don't want to look at you right now, I want to go to this other school, you know, that it just doesn't look right. You know, it's just, you know, you don't ever want to burn bridges like that. And so my advice would be to stay. You know, for those athletes right now that hasn't signed anywhere, that was struggling with, you know, where am I going? I haven't taken the test. And there are some athletes that are, you know, have committed to a school, but they couldn't sign because they couldn't get their grades. I mean, what a huge benefit. You don't have to take that test. All you have to do is have the GPA. But my advice for those students that already committed and signed with the school, my advice would be to stay. You would have to honor your commitment because, you know, if I'm offering you a scholarship and you know, I'm committing to you, then when you verbal to me, I would want the same respect.
Absolutely. I have to agree with that wholeheartedly. Let me see the next question. I have one that says, any advice for players who are playing out of position, and they would likely be recruited, I guess, from a different position. For example, you have a 5'8" post player. So the question is, advice for players who are playing out of position that they would likely be recruited for to accommodate their high school needs. So for example, it says a 5'8" post player.
Yeah, no, I understand. That happens a lot on the high school level because sometimes you can't really control like who comes to your school. And so I understand that question. You know, you're 5'8", you're a guard, and the coach is asking you to play down low. The first thing that I would do is have a conversation with my coach. You know, I'm finding out that a lot of student athletes, they get very frustrated, but they don't share those frustrations with their coach. You know, sometimes it comes from family members and people yelling in the stands and all that. A coach would really appreciate you coming to them one-on-one and talking about your concerns. You know, I'm a guard and you have me down here, down low. Maybe the coach can tweak some part of his offense because you're so strong. You can defend a post, but maybe on offense, you play the guard position. But sometimes you can't really control like who comes to your school. But what you can control is having a conversation with your coach and seeing what you guys could come up with. What would be the compromise? I think that would be the best route to go.
I definitely agree with that. So we've got a question that came in from the TW Josie Lady Eagles, and that question is, what are the biggest adjustments that incoming freshmen usually have to make on the college level?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, as a freshman, especially when you're being highly recruited, or, you know, maybe you're not being highly recruited and you're just making the jump from high school to college, the biggest adjustment would be time management. On the college level, there are going to be so many different things that you're going to have to do. And all of them are equally important. For example, you're going to have to go to classes. You're going to have to lift weights. You're going to have individual workouts. You got practice. You got study hall. You have all these things that you have to do. And as a freshman coming in, you will hear the word overwhelmed. I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just overwhelmed. But learning how to manage what you have going on. Sometimes your social life might have to take a backseat until you can figure out how to organize your days. And so, you know, a lot of colleges where you go will have things implemented for you to help you with that. Usually freshman year is very structured because of the time management, but that's the biggest thing. I also think too, as a freshman, you know, everybody on your team is going to be fast. You know, they're going to be able to shoot. They're going to be able to do pretty much what you were able to do in high school. And so having a confidence to bring your skill set and play against these people day in and day out is going to be big too. You know, a lot of freshmen kind of struggle with learning all the plays or understanding the defenses. All that stuff is normal. You know, all that stuff is normal. I know my freshman year, it didn't take me until, you know, the middle of the season where I really start to understand the terminology of what, you know, my coach would use as opposed to Coach Lofton, what he would use in high school. So it's, you know, that's the biggest adjustment. My advice would be not to get discouraged, that it's normal. It really is normal, and that it will get better. The game will slow down for you. But you just have to trust your coaches. You have to lean on them and listen to them because they've been through it. They've been coaching a lot of people up before you, and that's where the trust comes in. And then once you do that, like, you're going to get on a roll. You're going to feel a little bit more comfortable. You're going to say, oh, okay, I think I got this right now. But it's, you know, it's hard. It's a huge adjustment. And when you learn how to trust and you manage your time and you keep working, you'll be good. You'll be good. But it's going to be hard. If anybody tells you, you know, your freshman year is going to be so easy, do not listen. It's going to be hard. You should expect it to be hard because it is going to be hard.
It's definitely going to be hard. Definitely going to be adjustment.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely. That's good. All right. We got another question in from Coach Sean Mims. His question is, what is one common thing that you have seen that parents, players, and coaches seem to don't understand about the recruiting process?
Oh man. We can go in so many different directions. Well, here's what I can tell you. As coaches, we evaluate. You know, we evaluate, we evaluate, we evaluate. Once we figure out, like, can this player play for us? Does this player fit what we need? Then we start finding out about their grades, you know, what kind of person are they? Are they coachable? You know, it's a lot of things that go into it. And one of the things that, you know, I would say one thing that I run into a lot as a recruiter is that, you know, this coach right here is going to help you, you know, get a scholarship, or you need to listen to this coach or this one person or this. Listen, as college recruiters, we do our homework. You know, once we identify that you're a player that could help us out and fit our needs, then we're going to call everybody in your circle. We're going to call your guidance counselor. We're going to talk to a teacher. We're going to talk to opposing coaches. We're going to talk to AAU coaches. We're going to talk to high school coaches. I might even talk to your cousin and you not even know it. I mean, but we're going to find so much about you that when we say, hey, when you come play for us, we would have already done our homework. You know, the other thing is, you know, I think exposure camps are really good, you know, because it gives college coaches an opportunity. But I wasn't seeing that at an exposure camp. I actually played in the summer league around Augusta, Georgia. There were recruiters there for somebody else at a high school game, and that's how I got seen. There are so many different ways that you can get seen. It could be word of mouth. It could be, you know, I will call a coach, let's say in Augusta, and I'll say, hey, are there any good players in your area? There are so many ways that your name could get out. What you have to do is just, you got to put in the work. That's it. You have to put in the work, and you have to be patient. It's good that you have coaches that call and give us heads up. But you know, you got to let your work, you got to let your game do the talking, and all that other stuff will follow.
Definitely. So we got some questions rolling in. Let's see. We'll go next with Ms. Chantal Greer. What angle and/or strategies? Oh yeah. What angle and/or strategies do you take when trying to build relationships with players who have already found that person, coach on staff they already trust?
Can you ask that question again? You were breaking up.
What angle and/or strategies do you take when trying to build a relationship with players who have already found that person, coach on staff they already trust?
Yeah, I think those relationships have to organically happen. You can't really force it. I know for me, especially when I was a head coach, if one of my players had a connection with one of my staff members, then that was good. I just needed that player to have a connection. I think you can find connections, you know, when you are at practice or off the court, when they come into the office. You know, you can go to one of their classrooms and you could just support them. You know, you could just let them know that you're there. But I would never try to force a relationship at all. Like that stuff will organically happen from your interactions with them throughout it doesn't even have to be basketball things, you know. I find that when you take the time to know more about a player outside of basketball, that kind of helps build the trust, because they look at you as someone that, oh, she just doesn't care that I'm a basketball player. She cares about how my family's doing. She cares about how, you know, I'm doing. You know, I'm struggling today and she asked me how I was doing. Those things that I find are very beneficial when you're trying to build relationships. But I wouldn't force it. I would just let those things organically happen.
Definitely. All right, we got another question from Keshana Brown. She is a upcoming senior at TW Josie, and her question says, not necessarily about the college level, but what is your advice on a player who struggles with confidence and holds himself back from reaching their full potential out of fear of not being good enough or messing up?
Yeah, you know, that helps a lot of people from growing. You know, one of the things that I always rely back on is you get confidence in your preparation. So, you know, for example, I can't expect to be the best if I don't put the time in it. You know, I can't expect to have a nice jumper when I don't shoot. You know, that's one thing. So when you're around confident people always talk about their preparation, how they prepare for things, how you prepare for tests, how you prepare to go out and play a game, how you get confidence in your preparation. Then when it comes game time, if you miss a shot, if you make a mistake, you've already laid the foundation because you shot 5,000 threes. You know, you shot 1,000 free throws, and you've seen the ball go in. So just because you missed one shot doesn't mean that you're a bad shooter. So that's what I mean when I say you get confidence in your preparation. That's where your focus has to be. It can't necessarily be on the mistake that you made. It has to be on, you know, what correction that you need to make. So, you know, it's hard because when you're dealing with perfectionists, they just don't want to mess up, and then you end up messing up. So my advice to you would be, listen, train hard. Whatever you're, you know, if you're a basketball player, you know, you deem yourself a shooter, shoot a lot of shots, right? When it comes game time and you miss one, you got to remember the work that you put in. You can't let the work go in vain, and that's what you have to concentrate on. I mean, you know, Michael Jordan missed shots. You know, LeBron. I mean, a lot of people miss shots, so you shouldn't get stuck on that. But get your confidence in your preparation. That's what I can tell you. Once you take the focus off of the mistake, you'll be all right.
Definitely, I agree. That was a good question. That was a great answer. We have Miss Rita Haywood, who is the president of the WPBA, and her question is, do you implement visualization prior to games with your team?
You know what? So there are a lot of different things that we do to kind of get the team prepared. And I think once you find out what your team needs, then that's what you do. Visualization could be only for 2 or 3 players if that's what they need. So we do highlight. We do film where you're looking at different plays to make sure they understand. We talk about it. Some players like for you to write things down for them. I think you need to find out what your players need, and then that's what you do. I know I'm a big fan of, you know, after a big win, doing a highlight, putting some music to it, and letting them feel good about this win. We want to celebrate the win, you know. Even when we lose, you know, you still have to pick out the good things that you did, and then you got to look at the things that you have to get better at. So, you know, I think visualization is really good, but you also got to keep in mind, like, which players would benefit most from that. And once you identify those players, then that's where you gear that stuff for it.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, Rita has another question. What's been your most disappointing recruiting loss, i.e. a player selected another college and you thought you had her?
Let me tell you, man. Okay, so I've been coaching for a little over 20 years, okay? And I remember when I was at Clemson as an assistant, and I'll tell her this, I mean, there were 2 players. One was Takesha Granberry that went to Georgia Tech, and then the other one was Amber Smith, who went to Kentucky, and she's now one of the assistant coaches for Kentucky. But I tell you what, I recruited those players so hard. Like, I was emotionally invested. I mean, I just knew that they were coming to Clemson. I knew it. And, you know, as a coach, you know, you want to make sure that when you offer the scholarship that they're really close to saying yes. And you want to take all the no's away. So whatever you have to do. And I thought I did that. But when I got that call, I'm telling you, like, I needed a day. I needed a day. Like, I was mourning that loss. Wow. And as I got older in my career, like, I just grown to understand that that's part of it. You know, you get so invested with these players, with their parents, with their coaches, and, you know, you're building relationships along the way. And when it doesn't work out, it's disappointing, but, you know, life does go on. But early on in my career, you couldn't talk to me. I wasn't talking to any. I just needed a break. I was hurt. I was hurt. But, you know, you grow up, you learn, you understand it as part of the business. And, you know, although it sucks, you just got to keep it moving.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. All right, we have another question rolling in from Coach Michael Sweeper, who's the assistant coach for the Georgia Soul and the VP of the Georgia Soul. And he wants to know, can you speak on red flags that turn recruiters away from a talented player?
You got some time?
somebody taking notes. I know Brandy's watching. Brandy too.
Okay, so a big thing that would turn me away. I'm just going to speak for me. Okay, I'm not going to speak to most coaches, but I'm just going to speak for me. Bad body language is the worst. I don't care how good of a player you are, but you know, when the coach is trying to critique you and you can't look that coach in the eye, and you know, you make a mistake and you're like doing all the antics and letting everybody know you made a mistake, that is a turn off. You will not make my list. I don't care how good of a player you are. That is the worst, because you got to think about, you know, you're recruiting a player to come into your culture. And in our culture, we talk about body language because it matters. It just matters. You look at the great teams. You look how they respond after they make a mistake. You know, you look at the great players. You can't really tell if they're winning or losing. You know, they don't go up, they don't go down. And when you see bad body language, that is a turn off. It's not cool. It really isn't cool. You know, the second thing is, you know, are you a good teammate? You know, are you celebrating other people's successes? Your teammate gets the and one. Are you running over there to pick her up off the floor? Or are you just walking away to get into your space? You know, when you come off the floor, are you dapping everybody up, or do you just go sit down and plop? You know, is it about you in that moment, or is it about your team? That's another thing. That's a big thing. Those are like my non-negotiables. Like I can't. Your body language, it says a lot about you. You know, when someone's talking to you, be engaged. You know, these coaches, you think they're just talking for their health? No. You know, we're trying to help you out. And the least you can do is look me in my eye. Another thing is, you know, a lot of people don't think this, but when we come to games, we are always looking in the stands to see where the parents are. You know, we're looking in the stands to see where the parents are. How are they reacting to their child? You know, is she turning around? Is she not listening to the coach? Is she looking at her mom and dad? You know, we always look at that. Now, there are some parents that are encouraging and they're getting all into it. I'm not talking about those parents. I'm talking about the parents that, you know, try to coach them up a little bit. That, you know, so what goes into my head is, okay, so now she's in my program and I need her to listen to one voice. Is that going to be a discrepancy? Is she going to be able to hear my voice? Because this is what I need her to do. These are the things, you know, you guys may see something else, but for her growth, because I've been in practice every day. I've been watching film with her almost every day, and she knows what I need her to work on. She can't do all that stuff yet. She's not ready. Are you going to trust me? You know, that's where the trust comes in. Those are the questions that come in my head, you know, when I see how they're reacting to family members and friends. You know, are their heads always in the stands? And, you know, that stuff's important. That, you know, those are the three things. I'm sorry. I could name a few more, but those are my top three.
I think those are good. And I hope we have some parents that are on, some kids that are on, because that is huge. You know, body language. These kids these days, I've gone to some middle school games, some high school games this past season, and I tell you, these kids, they have changed. The respect that they have for these adults, it has changed. We have to do better as coaches, mentors. We have to do better, and parents as well. And I mean, because it starts from home. And, you know, if you're not able to be, you know, coachable at home, you're not going to be coachable at school. And so that is really huge that you just hit on. So I really appreciate you on that one. All right. The next question, I think Sean has another question. In your time recruiting and scouting teams, what's a skill you feel players in general need to try to master more?
Okay, you broke up a little bit. Can you please repeat that?
It says, in your time recruiting and scouting teams, what's a skill you feel players in general need to try to master more?
Okay, that's a really good question. If you pay attention to how basketball is evolving, a lot of people are talking about positionless basketball. So, not having a true back to the basket post player. So, a skill that I would really strongly encourage you to work on is your ball handling. Everybody needs to know how to dribble the ball. It'd be nice if you could dribble in tight spaces. It'd be nice if you can dribble, make passes off the dribble, but just being familiar with the ball. You don't want to be someone that cannot handle the ball. Okay. For me, as a coach, as you're putting a team together, I know the way that we like to play is, once we get the rebound, we want to go regardless who gets the rebound. So, I'm talking to post players right now. A lot of posts, especially on our level, can dribble the ball. A lot of those post players can shoot from the outside too. So I would say, the first thing is learn how to dribble the ball. Dribble the ball. I don't care how old you are, get the ball in your hand as soon as you can. And then the second thing is just shooting. Just getting out there and shooting from the perimeter. Starting close, work your way back. If you can shoot the three consistently, that's fine, but just getting an outside shot. Okay. I just think the game is just moving to, everybody can pretty much do everything. I know I've been on teams where we posted guards. I've been on teams where we ran post players off a ball screen. That's just kind of how the game is evolving.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, let's see. All right, the next question is, how involved should parents be in the recruiting process?
Well, parents should be involved. That's your kid. I know my daughter Jada, she's a sophomore, and I'm going to be involved. Jada's 15 years old. I'm sorry, she just turned 16. So parents should be involved. You want to know who's talking to your child. I, as a recruiter, I make sure that whoever I contact, whatever player that I'm talking to, I make sure I talk to mom and dad because that's important. That's your child. I think you should be involved. I think you should have an opinion. I think you guys should talk as a family about, what would be the best decision for your child. I think, once a player decides to go to a university, it takes a village. It just really does take a village. And I can't, I don't think you can be successful with that player, giving her everything that she could possibly be to be the best version of herself if you don't have your parents. So I think parents should be involved. That's my opinion.
Definitely. But all right, the next question is, looking back over your life and coaching kids at different levels, what advice can you give to a high school athlete who may be struggling with peer pressure or dealing with fitting in, or maybe not want to let their parents down? Like, what advice would you give to these young girls?
That's hard. That's a hard thing. I knew, when I was in high school, I didn't really fit into any group. Really, when I started playing basketball, that was my group. But it's, kids could be really, really mean. I had a tendency to just focus on my schoolwork, and I focused on my basketball, and pretty much I had to block out, what was being said around me. I got called so many names. I can laugh at it now, but in high school, it's tough because you know how kids could be. So my advice to you is to really find whatever it is that you can focus on. For me, it was academics and it was my sport. And I know what people say can hurt you, but you can't let that get to you because that's not who you are. That's just not who you are. You can't start believing what people could be saying about you. All right, stay focused on the main thing. I always say, keep the main thing the main thing. These people and trying to get me to do this and that, if they're not helping you reach your goals, then you should not give them any energy at all. At all. I was very blessed to have a very strong mom. And my dad had passed away at the time, but Coach Wendell Lofton, who is the head coach at Hepzibah, He just spoke so much life into me that really gave me the confidence not to listen to the noise that was happening around me. In fact, like, I don't think if he wasn't in my life, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. But for the young lady that asked that question, find you a mentor, find you someone that is doing what you want to do, and talk to that person. They put your focus on people that that will speak into your life and help you get what you want. Do not put any energy into others that is just not adding to your life at all. You can't. It's hard sometimes because you want to be cool and you want to fit in, but I'm just telling you, you keep living. My mom used to tell me that, keep living. You know that when you get older, you'll understand why I'm doing this. But focus on the people that's pouring into your life and not the ones that aren't.
Definitely. I think that's key. Like you said, they find someone who's doing something that you want to do, somebody that can pour positive into your life. And, I think that's really key right there. Okay, I got some more questions. I'm going to look. I think I have some more on this one. Who was instrumental with your college decision, and why did you choose Clemson? I know probably you're going to say Coach Lofton.
You already knew. You already knew. Yes. So at the time, I knew that I wanted to go somewhere where I could play. I didn't have to start, but I wanted to play. And so I also knew that I didn't want to go far, but I wanted to go far enough to where, I felt like I was away from home, so that knocked out a lot of schools. And so when it came down to it, it was Georgia, South Carolina, and Clemson. And I chose Clemson because at the time they needed a point guard. There were two people ahead of me. At least that's what I thought before going in. There were two people ahead of me, and I thought, you know what? I think I could come here and just play right away. I just wanted to play right away. At South Carolina, they had Shannon Johnson, and I don't even know if you guys know her, but she was Miss South Carolina everything. I mean, she was really, really good. And I think I would have only had 1 year to play with her. And at the time, South Carolina wasn't that good. So I was looking at, dang, are they going to win? Who else are they recruiting? Whatever. And so as I was trying to make my decision, my mom didn't really understand the recruiting process. She just thought, man, you're getting a scholarship and, I don't have to pay for school. So that was just a blessing for us because we were just excited that, I could go to college without paying for it. Coach Lofton was the one that was really helping me, decide. And I know, like, right now in hindsight, I know there were a lot of coaches in his ear about what I should do. And to be honest, like, Coach Lofton thought I was going to South Carolina. And I think I don't even know where he got that from. I know I talked about South Carolina a lot. But the day when I decided to commit to Clemson, Coach Lofton had already called South Carolina and told them that I was coming to South Carolina. But I was like, I'm going to Clemson. So that was funny. But Coach Lofton was the one that he really guided me. I talked about keeping the main thing. He did that. He always pushed me on my academics and just how I presented myself. And I mean, Coach Lofton, he was my dad pretty much. He was my dad. And I know he wasn't a dad to just me, but for everybody that played for him. But he was the biggest influencer in my life at the time.
I didn't play for Coach Lofton, but he was a dad to me. Coach Lofton taught me how to shoot at Payne College one summer.
Did you really?
And my parents contemplated us moving to Hephzibah earlier than we did, and almost was to play for Coach Lofton. And so I'll just leave that alone. I'm laying out the way, but I stay there, lady.
Oh, man.
But I love me some Coach Lofton. I definitely do.
Hey, what's not to love about him? I mean, he just loves people. He loves young people. He pours into them. He has such a solid foundation, and he's been around. Shoot, before he retired, I think he had been coaching for 45 years at one place at Hephzibah. So he's poured into so many lives, and he's still to this day, like we still talk. And you would think he's still out there coaching, but I mean, he's doing well.
Yeah, he is. He really is. That's awesome. All right. So Josie Lady Eagles has a question. If you could go back to your sophomore year at Hepzibah, what's one thing you would have changed and why?
My sophomore year at Hepzibah. Dang, y'all gonna make me date myself right now. You know what? At the time, I didn't really understand why Coach Lofton was hard on me. Because, like it took some time for me to really understand him. But I didn't understand why he was hard on me until I became a senior. Like I got it. So there would be some things that I would have to do in practice that I was just like in my head now. That wasn't disrespectful, but I'd be like, what the heck is he, does he even play? Like I would have comments like that in my head. But as a coach, you're always thinking big picture. You really are. You're thinking about how can you make the pieces get together. Like you're never thinking about one individual player. And I think, as a sophomore, I was young and I was so stuck on, man, I want to play. I want to, get better. And I thought you had to do X, Y, and Z. Well, Coach Lofton was a lot older than me. He's had way more experience than I did. A thing that I would have done better is I just would have trusted more. I just would have trusted him more. Now, it wasn't disrespectful. He probably never knew that. But I would question sometimes, like, why do I have to do this? And why did I have to do that? Thankfully, we had some really good leaders on our team. Sharon Mack, Monica Thomas, Teresa Ruff. We had some really good leaders on our team so that when those questions arose, they checked me. They checked me and that was it. So, I would have trusted my coach more.
That's good answer. Good answer. All right, Coach Sweeper, how should incoming and current college players prepare for a career path after basketball?
I'm glad you asked that question. That's actually a really good question. So, I feel like your whole 4 or 5 years in college should be preparing you for life after college. So, when we ask players, what do you want to major in? What do you want to do with that? Each year we are constantly helping you use the resources, showing you how to use the resources to help you with that. There's resume writing, there's, job shadowing, there is internships. There are so many things that I'm sure that a lot of universities have available for you to figure out what it is that you want to do. Now, when I went to Clemson, my whole thing was I want to play basketball. I want to be a professional player. I never really thought about, coaching. I never really thought about, anything else. And as a player, I think you can be proactive in that journey. Because usually the coaches are just like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you got to figure out what it is that you want to do. And I'm not saying you have to do that your freshman year, but at some point you need to figure out what it is that you want to do and start using the university's resources in helping you do that. The coaches, I mean, there are so many people that can help you. Your tutors, your AD, your coaches on staff, your assistant, like there are so many people that will be able to help you with that path. My advice to you is be responsible for your path. Because, don't be like me. I waited to my senior year and was like, what the heck? They were telling me to do all this stuff. Oh, now I understand why. No, get an understanding now. Your freshman, if I had to turn back the clock, my freshman year, I would have had a better plan. If, for example, if I can't play professionally, then this is what I'm going to do. If I can't do that, then this is what I'm going to do. And make sure that I set myself up to do that. Your college will have all the resources for you to do that.
Definitely. Now for you, you've been married, what, about 20 years now?
I have, yeah.
About 20 years. So fresh out of college, you got married and you went directly into coaching. At what point did you know you wanted to be a coach? At what part of your college career?
Well, you know what? It didn't happen for me that way. Coach Green, he was the assistant at Clemson when I was there. And I had just gotten cut out of a training camp. I forget, I think it was like the Minnesota Lynx. And he called me up and he was like, "Hey, did what do you think about coaching?" And I was like, I don't know. Because I just wanted to play. He was like, "Okay, why don't you come up here, try it out. If you don't like it, then, do something else." And at the time, I didn't have any other plans. And I was like, okay, well, this keeps me around basketball. I'm pretty sure I can still work out, whatever. So when I get to Liberty, he actually put a lot of responsibility on me. I mean, I had video exchange, I had to prepare workouts, I had to do scouting reports. That he just put a lot of responsibility on me, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I didn't think that I would fall in love with it the way that I did. And so it kind of just happened. In college, I thought I was going to play professionally and be a sports commentator. That was it. I was going to be the next Robin Roberts. Like, that's what I was going to do. But it did not happen that way. It just didn't happen that way. I'm so grateful and thankful that Coach Green asked me to be on his staff. And it kind of took off from there, because at that point, he had kind of opened up this hunger. It was kind of like, now I want to learn everything that I can learn. And, I want to teach. And I mean, he just really opened the floor for me to do a lot of things. And so it kind of started right at Liberty when he asked me, "Hey, you want to come coach?" So that's kind of how I got into it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, Coach. Okay, I see Coach Line. She was a little late, and she wanted to know, with changes due to coronavirus, how has the recruiting process changed? And I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, so if you want to just kind of sum it up for her.
Yeah. So recruiting has changed. Well, I wouldn't say it has changed a lot, but how we recruit has changed. So, at this point, we would be preparing to go to different exposure tournaments or different tournaments where our recruits would be. And now it's just so up in the air. And so we've been requesting a lot of film, especially on young kids. And we request no highlight tapes, just because, it's easy to show off what they can do well. It's better for us to evaluate during the flow of a game. So we've been requesting full games. And, that's been taking a long time because, if you go to a tournament, you're able to see like 40 or 50 kids, which is great. As we're getting in film, you have to watch the games, and that just takes time if you're only looking at one kid. So that's a little different. And that's been kind of tough. And then also, I didn't say this earlier, but we would be having players and their parents come on campus. We would have on-campus recruiting, and now you can't do that. You just, you can't go anywhere. And so we're doing a lot of things virtually, it's different. And you don't get the same type of feel as if you were standing in front of someone, or they're walking around campus and they can see for themselves. So it's just been interesting to kind of like navigate the recruiting, but these are cards that we've been dealt, and so this is what we have to do.
Definitely. Rita has an interesting question. Her question is, how do you feel about players with alternative lifestyles that feel liberated in showing public display of affection within and around the structure of your team?
Wow. Well, what you decide to do is just what you decide to do. But players have to keep in mind that, this is a team sport. And so, how you carry yourself, it matters. Even if we weren't talking about players with an alternative lifestyle, we were just talking about regular players that was outwardly showing PDA. There is a time and a place for everything, and you always have to keep in mind that the people that you come in contact with could be people that are thinking about hiring you. You just never know who's watching. And unfortunately, a lot of people will make assumptions about you just because of how you dress, what you do, the color of your skin. People just make a lot of assumptions about you. But regarding a team sport, you got to keep in mind that you're representing more than just yourself right now. And so that's what we talk to our players about. This is our family and this is how we operate, and, I wish one of my players would have like PDA, it's just a time and a place for everything. You know, some players would say, well, you're not letting me be myself. And that doesn't have anything to do with you being yourself. You know, it's not just about you in that moment. You know, a lot of people don't like the word selfish, but you're being selfish in that moment. It's about the team. What you do is what you do. I don't care. As long as you're in a healthy relationship, that's great. But when you're with us, this is how we conduct ourselves. So, you know, I know for some people that might be a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, it's a time and place for everything. It doesn't matter what type of lifestyle you live. It's a time and place for everything.
Yep.
So, yep, you hit that one. Okay. So to lighten things up a little bit, who were some of the best players you went up against in the CSRA?
Oh my God. Man, let me tell you, class of 95 was special. Class of 95 was special. I mean, off the top of my head, Tasha Cantfield from TW Josie, she was a baller. I mean, golly, she was so good. I mean, she could shoot, she could defend. You know, that was always a hard matchup. And then Essence Lee at Richmond, Richmond, long, slanky, can shoot. I mean, just very natural with the ball. I mean, I D'd her up though. I'm just putting that out there. I D'd her up. We always used to go to battle against Laney, always. And you know what? Like, I took it so personal because my mom went to Laney. And most of her brothers and sister went to Laney. So anytime we played Laney, I just played with a chip on my shoulder. Like, I couldn't stand them. But Joya Collier, there was also a lefty, Sabrina. I don't know Sabrina's last name, but she was a lefty guard and she was nice. And then Kanisha Horn, I think it was, her last name is Horn, but she was just a bruiser in the post. I mean, every time we played Laney, we had to roll up our sleeves like, all right, you know, this is about to be a real physical game.
Yeah, Kanisha Horn.
I'm missing some people, but you know, those were the ones off the top of my head that we used to go at it. It was a fun time though. Those were the days.
Yeah, definitely it was. Oh, I'm looking at Sean's comment.
Oh yeah, I just saw it. Well, you know what? I think Ricky Moore, Vonteagle Cummins. I think Will was maybe 2 classes behind us. Will Avery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basketball was. I mean, it was crazy back then. It was so much fun. It really was a lot of competition.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm excited to even listen at their video at 8 with Ricky Moore, Tyshawn, Darren Shine. That's going to be some interesting topics. I think they're going to focus more on, you know, players back in that time and just different things like that. So that's going to be pretty interesting. And, you know, even you're one of the few players in the Augusta area that has actually made it to the WNBA. You know, there are a few, but it's not a whole lot of young ladies. And that's definitely an honor in this area in the CSRA. I think there should be something done for all the young ladies that have made it to the WNBA in this area, just because it's not that many people, and so hopefully they'll do something, you know, eventually.
Well, this season, you know, just you know, like sometimes you got to be in the right place at the right time. It took me 2 or 3 years to even get into the league, so you know, I'm very grateful. You know, if there's something done, that's fine. But if not, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it still was a really cool experience.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me a little bit about your experience in the WNBA.
So, you know, I didn't get drafted out of school. So I was actually coaching and going to training camps in the summertime at the same time. And so I forget, you know, I think the first year I got cut by the Minnesota Lynx. The second year I went to the Washington Mystics training camp, and then I got cut from there and went to Indiana. And then I came back to the Mystics, and then I got cut before the first day roster. So they were kind of just waiting for other people to come back from overseas. And I think at that point, at first, like the first time I got cut from the Minnesota Lynx, I really thought it was me. I was like, God dang, you know, I just got to work harder. You know, I got to get in the gym. I got to, you know, do all this stuff. And then when I went through it the second year, it was kind of like they need to get what they need at that moment. So I didn't take it as personal. I wasn't as emotional. Like I understood that because it's a business. And so the third go around, I went back to the Mystics, and then I got cut. And then that's when the Houston Comets picked me up. And I actually ended up being on their roster, played with Cynthia Cooper and Cheryl Swoops. And I mean, it was fun. But then when I made it, I was like, all right, I'm done. I can concentrate on coaching now. But the whole process for me is always, it was like one of those things that was on the bucket list, and I did it, and now I can move on mentally.
Yeah, pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So you were in the movie Juwanna Mann. Tell me, I forgot. I was gonna try to see if I could play a little clip. Tell me how was that? No. Tell me how was that experience, and how did you get the opportunity to even be in that movie?
I don't know why I get so embarrassed about it, but it was so random. It was so random. I like to play pickup basketball just everywhere I go. And someone saw me somewhere at a pickup, because they said they saw me playing pickup and they wanted me to come to Charlotte and read some lines. And I thought somebody was playing a trick on me. Like I thought I was getting punked. So I called my college coach and was like, Coach Davis, can you please look into this? And so he looked into it, and then he called me back and he was like, no, I think this is legit. He was like, just go to Charlotte. And at the time I was at Clemson. And so Charlotte was less than 2 hours away. So I drove up to the Charlotte training facility and we played basketball. I read a few lines. We kind of like hung out. It was like only like 10 or 15 of us. And then I didn't hear a word. So, I was in the middle of transitioning to Indianapolis because my husband had gotten a job in Indy. And so I was leaving Liberty, going to Indy, and I get a call saying that I got a part. And I was like, a part in what? Because a month had went by and I had totally forgot about it. So they were like, this lady was like, hey, you got the part in the movie, and we're going to need you for at least 3 months. Can you commit to 3 months? And I'm just like, what kind of movie is this? And she was like, it's a box office movie. And I was just like, it still just wasn't registering with me at all. So then I was like, sure, because I wasn't doing anything, I wasn't in training camp. So I was like, all right. So then they flew me down to Charlotte. And then when I walked on the set, I was like, wait a minute, that's Vivica Fox. I was like, that's Kim Williams. I was like, wait. So then I felt embarrassed. So I had to like tap somebody and be like, could you explain to me what kind of movie this is? Because, I'm from Augusta. I don't get out much, okay? So they were like, no, this movie, you got to go pay to see this movie. And I was like, oh, that's where it hit me. I was like, oh. I was starstruck for like 2 days. And then after that, I got really bored because I was just like, man, I see why people want to be in movies is because, you get paid a lot of money, but it's a lot of wasted time. You go from, I had a very active life. And when you're on set, you could be on set for anywhere from like 5 hours to like 15 hours.
Wow.
And, if you're not doing anything, if you don't have a line, if you're not in the scene, you're just sitting around. And that just aggravated the mess out of me. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But, it was fun. I got to meet a lot of neat people. We took pictures, all that stuff. It was fun. But I just don't think movies is for me. I just, at the time I was just like, oh, this is cool. But then it got old quick. But it was fun.
That's too funny. That's too funny. I think that is all the questions that we have. So if no one else has anything, I just want to say thank you for being a part of the talk today. I'm pretty sure that it has been helpful to someone. And then, of course, it'll be up for them to view later. And so I really just want to say thank you and good luck on your new journey at Marquette. We wish you the best this season. If you ever need anything, I'm here. And and happy Mother's Day. Mother's Day weekend is this weekend. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And
I have something to say before you close me off. First of all, Nisha, I just want to publicly say that I really appreciate what you're doing for the CSRA. You are impacting so many lives. In fact, you know what you're doing, like I have a heart to do what you're doing right now. And it takes a lot of time. You know, sometimes you don't get paid for it, but it is needed. It is definitely needed. So I just appreciate you for kind of getting the word out to people that need it, but also the heart that you have for young people. So I just really appreciate it. You let me know if there's anything else that I could do to help, and I will.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being on. And thank you guys for watching Hoop Scoop from Straight from the Soul with Nisha Wright and Mrs. Otora Umo Coleman.
Thank you, guys.
All right.